Hey, if it makes you feel good to cosplay as revolutionaries, knock yourself out, burn yourself out. Just don't drag Gaza into it. Also, throwing stuff on paintings is just stupid.
You ever notice how some people think blocking traffic is the ultimate act of bravery? Like somehow making parents late to pick up their kids or trapping workers in their cars is a revolutionary act that will change the world. Spoiler alert, it won't. Bill Maher just roasted the woke mob for pulling these stunts and pretending it's activism. He cut straight through the noise and said what everyone else is already thinking: this isn't justice, it's theater. We've all seen the footage: roads blocked, bridges clogged, commuters honking like crazy, parents trying to get to daycare, students racing to class, people just trying to make a living. And in the middle of all that chaos, activists sitting cross-legged on the asphalt like they're Gandhi reborn. Except Gandhi didn't glue his hands to the freeway for TikTok clout.
Well, someone needs to tell the people who block traffic in the name of a cause, no one likes you. And you're probably hurting your cause. In case you haven't seen what's going on lately, activists for ending the war in Gaza have taken to gathering on roads and bridges and stopping commuters from crossing. It happened last week in New York and San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle. They also blocked traffic here on the 405, but no one noticed.
And that's the core of Maher's point. If your activism punishes ordinary, hard-working people, people who had nothing to do with decisions made in Washington or Tel Aviv, you're not a hero, you're a nuisance. Nobody feels inspired when they miss a doctor's appointment because you wanted to scream about an issue you probably discovered on Twitter 6 months ago. And yeah, I said Twitter, not X. Elon can change the logo all he wants, but we all know what it really is.
What they did notice was this, that you have to be pretty dumb to think that the way to bring people around to your point of view is to make them late to pick up their kids from daycare. And that's what most normies are thinking. I have a kid. I have a job, and yes, I'm sure there are injustices on both sides in the Middle East, as there are injustices all over the world, but I'm going to be late for work, something you protesters on the bridge seem to have the luxury of not having to worry about, which seems kind of privilegey.
Maher didn't stop at mocking blocked roads. He went deeper, into the hypocrisy. Because if these activists were really serious about injustice, they'd focus on the places where oppression is brutal and undeniable. Millions of women in the Middle East live under gender apartheid. No rights, no freedom, no voice. Yet somehow, those stories never make it to protest signs. Why? Because it's not trendy. It doesn't go viral on Instagram. And it sure doesn't rack up likes on TikTok.
You can glue your hands to the street because your hands don't have to do any work today. I'm not saying there aren't sincere passions about Gaza, especially among people from the region, but social justice warriors, for a lot of them it seems like it's more about the warrioring than about whatever the cause is. If you really cared about apartheid so much, which Israel does not actually practice, Arabs there vote, they serve in parliament, they sit on the judiciary, wouldn't you start with this? With the hundreds of millions of women in the world who live under a true apartheid, a gender apartheid of the most brutal kind? I'll wait.
Here's the part nobody admits. A lot of woke activism isn't about conviction, it's about content. It's not about change, it's about clout. You've got people wearing Che Guevara shirts like he's a cool pop icon, without realizing he was a murderous racist thug fighting for communism, one of the most destructive ideologies in history. But hey, the shirt looks edgy on Instagram, right? Maher called it out for what it is: cosplay. Activism as fashion. People dressing up as revolutionaries like it's Halloween, without knowing history or understanding the cause. It's like someone buying a Metallica t-shirt at Target, but not being able to name a single song. That's not music fandom, it's aesthetics. And that's exactly what activism has become.
Are you really speaking truth to power, or do you just think you look cool in a keffiyeh? Which is really just the new Che Guevara t-shirt. Another historical figure you never researched, and so think is a hero, but was actually a sadistic, racist monster fighting for communism, the worst form of government ever. But these are small matters.
Now let's be honest. How many of these so-called revolutionaries could actually hold a serious conversation about the issues they're fighting for? Almost none. Push them for details, and they collapse into slogans. They chant justice or free this, free that, but can't explain what they mean. And if you think I'm exaggerating, go watch those street interviews. Protesters get asked basic questions, and the answers are incoherent, contradictory, or just plain embarrassing. Comedy gold.
Small matters when activism merges with narcissism. Less about the cause and more about me. Look at me. Watch me. And if you like the way I'm fighting injustice, remember to like and subscribe.
Meanwhile, everyday Americans are just trying to survive. They're paying bills, filling up their gas tanks, packing lunches, and praying they don't get stuck in traffic because someone superglued themselves to the highway. That's the hypocrisy Maher torched. For all the noise activists make, they're totally disconnected from the lives of the people they claim to represent. And don't even get me started on vandalizing art. Who in their right mind thinks throwing soup at a painting is going to stop climate change or end a war?
Hey, if it makes you feel good to cosplay as revolutionaries, knock yourself out, burn yourself out. Just don't drag Gaza into it. Also, throwing stuff on paintings is just stupid.
Newsflash. No one sees mashed potatoes smeared across a Monet and suddenly decides to recycle. That's not how it works. All it does is damage priceless art that belongs to humanity, not to governments, oil companies, or politicians. Destroying culture doesn't create change, it creates resentment. Maher nailed it. This isn't about change, it's about attention. They want the spotlight, not solutions. They want clicks, not compromises. It's performance art dressed up as activism. And the media eats it up. Viral clips of glued protesters get more coverage than the actual issues they're supposedly fighting for.
No one sees mashed potatoes on a Monet and thinks, he's got a point, I should recycle my cans. Last week, Google employees staged a sit-in to protest their company doing business with Israel. Their T-shirts said, Googlers against genocide, but they could have just as well said, look at me, see me. And Google did see them to the door.
One of the most savage lines Maher dropped was about the man who set himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy. Tragic, yes. But Maher's point? If self-immolation really changed history, Abraham Lincoln would have had to ask Ulysses Grant for the log he burned himself on. Brutal, but true. Theatrics don't change reality. Hard work does. Strategy does. Leadership does. Setting yourself on fire leaves smoke and ash, and then the world moves on.
In February, a sad, confused man even lit himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy, and in his last Facebook post he said, many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery? Interesting cocktail question, sir, and I guess the right answer is kill myself. But it wouldn't have actually fixed the problem if General Ulysses S. Grant had immolated himself and his last words were, hey Lincoln, are you using that log?
End d'ici soir Maher retard est.
If you want to commit to activism, do it with knowledge, with substance, with real sacrifice. Otherwise, it's cosplay. It's play acting. Most of the woke crowd aren't warriors, they're narcissists. They want selfies at protests, TikToks of themselves yelling in the streets, and the dopamine rush of feeling important, without the discipline real change requires. If your activism makes people late for work, you're not a hero. If your protest ruins a painting, you're not a visionary. If your cause is something you just learned about last semester, you're not informed, you're just loud. And if your highlight is posting it online, congrats, you're chasing clout, not changing the world.
I don't want to diminish how sad it is that someone would take their own life for any reason, but maybe from now on, before anyone commits an act of civil disobedience, they should ask themselves a few questions, like, is the most important thing in my life something I hadn't heard of 6 months ago? Do I even know? Do I even know what the fuck I'm talking about? Am I really here for the cause, or is the cause here to bring you me?
That's the brutal honesty Bill Maher delivered. Whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny he's saying what most people already think but are too afraid to say. Because most of us don't have time to play pretend revolutionary, we're too busy living real lives. The people shutting down roads and trashing art just don't get it. Because if they really cared, they'd stop cosplaying as warriors and start doing the boring, thankless, real work of change. Until then, it's just arrogance dressed up as activism. That's why Maher's takedown hit so hard. It was funny, sharp, and brutally honest. Sometimes you need someone to cut through the nonsense with no sugarcoating. And that's exactly what he did. So here's my challenge. Next time you see one of these stunts, whether it's a roadblock, a protest selfie, or a painting covered in soup, ask yourself, is this really about justice or just about attention? And then ask something even more important. Do these people even know what they're talking about? Because if the answer is no, you're not looking at activists. You're looking at performers. And that makes all the difference.